Welcome to Gun Club Radio. My name is Aaron, and I'm excited because we have Margaux Alvarez with us. Margaux, believe it or not, I found her based on somebody's social media post, and she shared, and I was like, who is this like super fit chick running guns and like testing out different stuff? And I'm just like, this is fascinating. Look a little bit deeper. It turns out like she's doing all the things. She's over on the doing Titan Games. If you watch that show, and we'll definitely ask her about that. And she also did the tactical games. And if you know anything about people who do the tactical games, they probably did some CrossFit too. And so she's competed and all sorts of CrossFit stuff. And we'll have to ask her about that because if you can't tell, I'm a complete novice when it comes to those things. So we're talking to the expert, and I think we'll be able to get some good answers. For those who are watching live, if you want to ask anything, just go ahead and type it in the chat, and we'll go ahead and grab those and ask at the end. And let's just dive right into it. Margaux, welcome to the show. Sorry, I had you muted. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great.
Perfect.
It's great having you. Thank you so much for being here. I know you have a million things going on between your wine company. I'm just now hearing about that through, and then your consulting, and you could be out there working out right now, but you're here hanging out with us, and I'm just completely honored. Thanks for being here.
Of course, I'm excited.
Yeah, so I guess let's get started. Maybe let's talk about the Titan Games first, because I think that'll be kind of interesting for people. You sent when I asked for some like headshots and stuff, you sent over a picture of you talking to The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, which is something that most people probably can't say they did. I know he's just a guy, but he's also a massive human being. What was that like? What was that like being on the show? And then, of course, did you interact with him much? And what was the whole point of you being there?
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. That was actually season two. So they did the year before they did season one, and they restructured the format for season two. And so being selected, obviously you had to kind of apply. You had put an application, put in a video. I had actually applied for American Ninja Warrior the year before and got selected for that. Had the opportunity to run, and so like same casting team or producers were doing the Titan show, the season two. So I was able to put my application in, do all that, and that was a really cool experience. Got selected. They actually had prelims down in LA, so I think they had about 50 to 60 females and males down there. Then from there, they kind of did interviews, got to see how we did in person, interacting, our energy, our kind of communication with everyone. Did some events like testing events and doing different implements, not knowing if it would be on the show or not. And then from there, they selected, I believe it was 18 women and 18 men. And then from there, we got to continue on, and we actually did the filming in Atlanta, outside Atlanta in Georgia. And then we were there for about 2.5, 3 weeks doing all the filming. And it was just a really cool experience because I'd actually, some of the people that I knew, one person specifically Matt Chan, we've competed together in CrossFit. And so to see him there was really cool because I knew him through the CrossFit community and just through the fitness community as well. We also worked together. And so it was just a really awesome opportunity to really connect with like-minded individuals. They had a variety of people on there. There was one lady, Cynthia, she rode or drove monster truck, like the monster trucks, like the big monster trucks. It was really cool.
Wow.
So connect with people that we all had fitness as kind of part of our life, but we kind of came from different backgrounds. So obviously it's a TV show, it's a competition as well, but The Rock really wanted to highlight people's unique stories and maybe hardships that they went through, maybe challenges they'd overcome in life, and how they were able to essentially continue forward and in those challenges in life. And for me, it was just an opportunity to connect with other people, hopefully tell my story, and hopefully inspire and motivate others out there that are struggling with family loss or anything else in their life that maybe they can find the strength within, or maybe strength from other individuals to continue on with their life. So it was a really cool opportunity. And of course, we all want to win. We're all athletes in some form or fashion. We have that competitiveness drive in us.
Yeah.
I can speak for myself, I'm not sure about everybody else, but just met some amazing people, and we actually became really good friends, and we've continued to stay in touch over the years. It's been actually be 5 years right now. 5 years right now. I think it was like end of January. Before we started filming. And we had a couple conversations about, I had lost my sister in a freak car accident in 2008. And so we kind of connected over that, him losing his father suddenly, losing my sister, at that time suddenly, and just understanding that, we aren't guaranteed tomorrow, we aren't guaranteed next week, next month, and we just want to take the opportunity to make the most of every single day that we have because,
Yeah.
things drastically. So it was just an incredible experience.
Yeah. The audio did cut out. So who did you say lost a sibling is along with you?
So I lost my sister in
Hmm.
2008 in a freak car accident,
Yeah.
and then he
Sorry.
lost his dad kind of end of January, right before we started filming. So we had kind of, not that you want to bond over that, right? You never wish ill will or never want anyone to have to go through that. Um, but it was something that we kind of bonded over and connected, and hopefully, we were able to connect there. But hopefully, our the ability to tell the story and share with others, and hopefully gives solace to others that maybe have lost a family member,
All right.
whether it's an accident or
Well,
anything.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I wanted to ask you about, but you never know where somebody is in their journey because obviously some days can be better than others.
For
Um,
sure.
if you're able, can you kind of maybe share some of that story of not necessarily of what happened, but how it maybe motivated you and kind of where it took you in your journey, going
For
through something
sure.
like that, losing somebody so close to you.
Yeah, it was for sure hard. Her anniversary just passed, actually, the 31st of January. And so
Oh, man.
it's I think it's tough because you don't know how to handle something like that. You don't really anticipate, right? Obviously each situation is different, but for me, I try to look at it as, I believe everything happens or doesn't happen for a reason. As much as I wish she could still be here and that never happened and she never was in the accident, but I learned a lot in terms of how she lived life. She was someone that made the most of every single moment. She was always trying to take advantage of every opportunity that arose, whatever that could be, anything from hanging out with friends or having the opportunity to go to a show. And for me, it just changed my perspective a little bit on life. And like I said earlier, we are not guaranteed tomorrow, next year, next month. And so I really tried to live life to its fullest. I truly, really tried to truly take the most of every opportunity I had, whether that was an opportunity to go on Titan Games, American Ninja Warrior, compete at the CrossFit Games, have an opportunity to connect with, wine distributors, anything that I had. I just tried to really approach it with the light that, hey, if this doesn't work, fine, but at least I give it my all. And I think that she was a big inspiration to me to, stopping my or quitting my full time job to focus on competing within CrossFit, because it was a complete change, saying no to a consistent paycheck, saying no to, healthcare, saying no to this maybe stable or set hours of work, and saying yes to an opportunity to maybe potentially qualify to compete the games, but there was no guarantee on that. And I thought to myself, if I try this and I put everything in and I don't succeed and I don't make it and I don't qualify, then at least I can look back and say I gave it everything I got, versus maybe leaving one foot in and one foot out. And so she really changed my perspective on how I live life and how I've really approached life and business and just overall how I kind of take each day that I have. Um, it's something that, again, I wish she was here to experience it with me, but I've also kind of learned to adjust my mindset where maybe she's not physically here with me, but maybe she's with me emotionally, spiritually. And I try to think of it as, anything that I see through my eyes, that's what I experience. But maybe in her soul and her spirit, she's able to see that too. So any opportunity that I get to maybe, go on a hike or explore something new or go on a motorcycle trip or travel someplace new, hopefully that she's with me in spirit and she gets to see those places that she never got to. So I think it's something that obviously I learned. Not that you want to learn that lesson the hard way like I did, but it also, we have to sometimes go through valleys and through hard points in our life to be able to receive or learn that lesson. Or something I recently heard on a sermon that a friend shared with me was that to get the fruit, you must go through the valley. So to receive that fruit, to get that fruit, to get that lesson, you must go through some hardship or some challenge or overcome something difficult. And I think that's something I'm constantly trying to learn and accept. And I think it's hard because sometimes we are on a point of struggling where we're like, is this even worth it? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Is it a train that's going to hit me, or is there actually like the light that's going to help me through?
Yeah.
But it was a huge learning lesson, and she taught me a lot.
No, I thank you so much for sharing, and I'm
Of
glad you could
course.
really just kind of get that all out there because people, there's somebody out there who's listening to this right now who lost somebody who maybe it's not a sister, maybe it's a grandma, and people are like, oh, it's just a grandma. Well, sometimes those grandmas are your best friends. I know for
For
my
sure,
daughter,
100%.
like she spent more time with her grandma than she has with me, which somebody might, question that, but don't question that. There's a reason. And like they absolutely adore each other. And so losing somebody, whether they're early in life or even, later in life, and maybe you're not ready to let go. And I
For
think that's the
sure.
hard thing is when you're not ready to let go because they don't have a choice, but you kind of have to sit with the consequences of whatever it was that happened. And that's hard. And I
I
love that
agree.
you did mention it. It crossed my mind as you were saying it that with the fruit there's the valley, and you know the idea that you can a life is a beautiful thing in the sense that you keep going and you can find the meaning in life when you realize that there's really tough things that happen, that there is death at the end. And so you can
Hmm.
value what you have a little bit more. Like people living in $1 million mansions, like you get used to it.
Yeah,
But when you see somebody
100%.
living in nothing, literally a cardboard box, it's like, man, maybe I should be thankful for what I have. Maybe I should stop complaining because my garbage disposal is acting up today. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's perspective that's really important. And it's, waking up. And I remind myself of this. It's like, man, like I wake up and, maybe not everything's going well, or maybe there's some struggles we're facing, but I think, man, I have a functioning body. I have the ability to use my legs. I have the ability to use my hands. I can smell, I can see. And I try to really focus on perspective, especially in an environment where, I have a lot of things that maybe people don't have. And something that kind of gave me solace back then, and I try to keep it like in my mind now when I have hard days, or, her memorial or her anniversary was last week. I think, she came to me. I was living in Hawaii at the time. I went to school out there, so I was flying back on a red eye, and I was asleep on the plane. And in my dream, she came to me, and I was in this high rise balcony, and I see her at the balcony. I'm like, it's windy outside, her hair's everywhere. And I was like, I'll let her in. Maybe I can save her. Maybe I can help her. And that was something I've struggled with, or I did struggle with in the beginning, was as the older sister, how could I have saved her or helped her or not have her be in that accident? And so I rush to that window, I open it up, and it's all quiet and calm. And she's like, I can't come in, but I'm okay. And then she disappears, and I wake up. And I think it was her way to message to me or communicate with me that she's okay, that wherever she's at, she'll be fine. And for me, it's like, I want to hold on to that. But I think as we learn, as we get older and we grow, that we can't hold on to everything. We don't have to, but we should enjoy a moment, enjoy an experience, enjoy a person, their energy, and then at some point that moment's going to pass. At some point that person will pass. Like you said, death is going to happen. It is guaranteed. That is something. We're not infinite, right? We are finite. So for me, it was solace, and it gave me some comfort at the time, as much as it was hard to accept, that she was okay, and that I will meet with her again somewhere else. And I think what makes it also, at least perspective wise, again, giving that ability to look back and also look forward, is she had expressed to my mom that she was going to pass away young. She felt that she wasn't going to live very long. And so, hard, obviously, as like young kids, where you're like, no, that's not true, that's not going to happen. But I think she's very intuitive, she was very connected, and I think that's something that made her so amazing. She had such an impact on people on their life, even friends that she grew up with, we still keep in touch to the day. And looking back and seeing their pictures and maybe their memories that I missed out on as a sister, but they got to have that experience with her beautiful soul and spirit. Like, man, she touched a lot of people in a good way. And I think she continues to love on through them and through my memories and through everyone else.
Yeah. Wow.
Not
That's
to be like super heavy as we
no. I
start.
mean, we're already here. We're here.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about that. But thank you once again for sharing that. And I'm just reflecting. I remember I had a friend from like second, third, fourth grade. Like those formative years, and I got some news one time that it was the last news I'd heard of her, that she had passed away, and we were both mid-20s at the time. Must have been like 25,
Damn.
26. And she was such a free spirit, probably lived a little bit too close to the edge, if we're being honest. But,
Yeah.
just a good person. If you can find like the definition of good person, I think she'd match it. And it's just the weirdest thing. I don't share this often, but I guess I'll share with you and whoever's listening. Um, I had a dream, and I was like, why are you here? Like, we weren't even that close. But something, I
Yeah.
think maybe just knowing about her passing really like impacted me deeply. Um, and she like gave me an embrace, and I was just like, I guess I needed this. I don't know. And I woke up like sad. I was like,
Yeah.
why is this happening? But just hearing what you say, and knowing how much closer your sister was with you, and sharing that moment, that's that's intense. And I'm glad you had it, but also I know that probably haunted you for till this day even. So
Yeah. And I
where do we
think
go
they
from here?
communicate with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
They communicate with us in different ways and different facets. And I think sometimes being willing and open to receiving that is part of the process. Like I know my youngest sister was really upset because she was like, man, why didn't she come visit me? And I think I'm like, I don't know, like maybe she just wasn't ready to receive that because she was 18 at the time. My sister
Mm,
was 20 past and I was 22, so I was a little older. But yeah, I think it's tough, but again, as heavy as that was, like learning, all right, what can I do now to advocate for, living your life to the fullest, being able to hopefully share and hopefully inspire and help people. And I think, again, I think part of that desire to help people was maybe that I couldn't help her, I couldn't save her from the accident. So maybe I can help other people through fitness, through exercise, through
yeah.
mindset, through maybe I can help them live a healthier life that leads to a longer life, that leads to them being around for their kids, their grandkids, etc.
So on that note,
Yeah.
this is a hard pivot.
Yeah.
Um, you said you quit your job to start doing CrossFit full time to compete, which is the most rebellious, transgressive, not first child, not oldest daughter thing you could possibly do.
Hmm.
What the heck? What were you thinking? How old were you when this happened? What was going on in your life?
Yeah.
Did you go through like some sort of like terrible thing? Like, did you break up with somebody? Like, what the heck?
So I think part of it was maybe I was kind of a little bit lost for my sister because my sister passed away in 2008. I had
Hmm.
found CrossFit in 2011, and I think it ignited something inside of me because I was challenged not only physically but also mentally. Like I never really had picked up a barbell. I had worked out, I'd gone to the gym, I'd done like maybe some dumbbell workouts, did lots of running beforehand, and I just loved the physical challenge. And I had signed up for a movement mobility seminar with Kelly Starrett, which he has an amazing book and a lot of educational pieces in terms of mobility and how the body works. And I was just really, I'd already been a personal trainer since 2009, so fitness was already part of my life, and I knew I wanted to continue the avenue. And I ended up taking the level one. And I was a sponge. I feel like this is the best way to kind of describe it, but I was a sponge and I wanted to absorb as much information as possible. And after the level one, I had volunteered at the time the SoCal regionals, and I saw these amazing women on the competition field. I remember it was Becca Voigt, Katie Hogan, Chris Clever, and I saw these amazing ladies going and lifting all this weight. I was like, man, these women are incredible. They're strong, they're powerful, they're confident. I was like, I want to be like that. I want to lift this heavy weight. And I was like, that was kind of the moment I was like, I want to compete at this level. I would like to make it to the stage where I compete and throw down, not to prove anything to anyone, but just to myself to say, how far can I take this? Again, can I put all my eggs in this basket and can I make it to that level of competition? And then about a month and a half later, I had volunteered for the CrossFit Games in 2011. And I worked with part of the CrossFit staff and part of the Rogue Fitness staff, just volunteering and seeing these women again at the world stage, not just at the SoCal stage, but seeing these women compete. Again, it gives me goosebumps because it's like I want to compete at a level where I'm, challenging myself, pushing myself as much as I can to my level, but also throwing down with these other amazing people. And the community had really pulled me in because it was very supportive, very, very uplifting. And I think again, I think I was struggling a lot with the loss of my sister, maybe feeling maybe lost and not sure what to do. How can I help people? I'd been in personal training, a personal trainer. I had done some marketing at a health club. I'd done membership and sales, and then I had gone back to a marketing assistant position with a healthcare company. And I liked that, and it was consistent, and I liked the creativity piece of it. But I was always drawn to the fitness, and there was kind of a line in the sand where the company was moving. I either go to the East Coast and move and grow with them, or I say, we part ways, we'll close out my time, and then I, continue to stay in California. And in my mind, I was like, well, if I move and I take this job, I can do that, but then I also could, build out my personal training and do what I want to do with fitness. And I caught myself, and I was like, well, if I'm already talking about, moving over there, but then focusing on fitness and training, why would I not just stay here and continue to build what I've built the past couple years? So I decided, all right, as this job leaves, I'll continue to finish out my time, and I'll focus on, again, once I volunteered, I was like, I'm all in. I want to go to the games. So I essentially said, I'm no longer going to do my marketing job. I will focus on, coaching, maybe doing personal training, whatever I can do to make ends meet so that I could be in a position to coach or be in a position to train full time. So it was, again, kind of like, oh, are you really sure? I'm like, I mean, this is what I really wanted. People kind of joke about within the CrossFit space, the Kool-Aid drinking people, like, they're crazy. All they talk about is CrossFit, And I for sure was that person, but I was just so passionate about it. I think, again, I think it gave me a place to call home in a way, because I think maybe I was lost. And I look back now, I mean, I was 20, 26 at the time. I think, I not that to say that I didn't know where I was going. I had an idea of where I was going, but I think I was in maybe an area of where I wanted to go, but I was not necessarily exactly, hey, this is exactly the path that I want to take. And I think that kind of gave me like, hey, this is what I want to do. And especially with my sister being gone and having going through that, maybe not really process that mentally. I think, maybe this is, I'm going to pour my whole heart and soul into this, and maybe I'll find my way, and maybe she'll be with me along the way.
That's That's interesting because it's making such a career jump. Obviously, if you had a little bit of savings, or I don't believe you mentioned if you were married or dating or anything at the time,
Not
but
at the time, no.
and sometimes that can be the big difference maker because it's like, hey, like don't do this because it impacts both of us, or okay, go ahead and do this and I'll support your dreams. Do you personally feel like, based on the way your relationships have played out, that you would have been able to make this kind of jump if you were locked into something committed at the time, like relationship wise?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because I've come across people in my life that there's been kind of a little bit of both, right? Like they're in a relationship with someone that's super supportive, and they're like, yes, you can do this. I'll be here right by your side. And then there's also people that maybe it didn't work out, or maybe they started that path and then didn't work out and they split. So it's hard to go back and say. I will say that I ended up meeting my coach later, kind of end of that year in 2011, beginning of 2012, and we ended up getting together, becoming boyfriend girlfriend, and then eventually we ended up getting married. So my coach became my partner, and he was able to help me a lot because I was kind of lost in the sense of where I was going. Like I would go to one gym to do my CrossFit workouts. I would go to one gym to learn how to power lift. I would go to another gym to learn how to Olympic weightlift. And so I was kind of like a chicken running around with my head chopped off because I was like, I need as much, again, I'm a sponge. I'm trying to absorb as much information as I can. So luckily I had someone that was there to guide me at the kind of at the beginning, saying, hey, this is what I think you should do as a coach. This is, what you need to work on, et cetera, et cetera. And again, to looking back to other people, there's other competitors that I knew that they were already together in a relationship and they decided to go that route, and they were very supportive. And there was other people that maybe like, didn't necessarily work out, and maybe they weren't able to continue training for that goal, or they continued, but then they had to split and make ways with the person they were with. So I think
It's got
it's
to be
tough. I think it
tough.
depends. But yeah, I think it just depends on the individual and the relationship you have and the people that you have in your life. I will say your environment around you is very, very important. And sometimes the people that are maybe the closest to you, whether it's family, friends, cousins, sisters, the gym you go to, they may not always be supportive. And there was an environment that I was in when I first started that wasn't necessarily supportive. The community was, but there were select individuals that weren't, and it became a toxic environment. And I had to leave that place and go somewhere else because the energy to reach a goal like that, and it doesn't have to be just CrossFit, right? It could be anything. If you have
Hmm.
people pulling you down and negative and constantly like, oh, you can't do this, or oh, you're never going to get there, or oh yeah, she's not going to make it to that level. It's like, man, that's just like negative Nancy. No one needs that.
Now, as much as
But
you're
it's hard.
able,
Some,
because
yeah,
this is
exactly.
this is the spicy part of the conversation.
Yeah.
What was like? Let's get into some detail. I'm not saying say the name of the gym that you were at, and it was Greg. He did this. Coach Greg, if you're familiar. Um, like, what were what were you presenting, and then what were other people, I guess, sending back your way in return? Like, were you saying like, "Hey, I want to go compete," and they were just like, "Well, you're a little short. You know, most of the girls are this height or have this build, or you're too skinny." Or like, what were they? What was happening?
I think it was more, not I think I know what it was, is that it was kind of like false encouragement in a way. Like, yeah, you could totally do this. You could totally compete. You should do it. You should want to be as good as, all these other athletes. You should want to beat them. You should want to beat me. And then when I did get good and when I did get better, and then when I was at their level, it was like, oh, she's at my level. And I've been around enough catty women in my life.
Oh, so this is mostly women.
Oh yeah, mostly women,
Okay.
unfortunately. Which is
That's
it breaks my heart because
yeah.
I've had plenty of experience, and this goes back even to high school. And I've had women, girls jealous or envious of whatever it is. And I've had other friends say, hey, that they're jealous or envious of your looks or your clothes or whatever it is, who you are as a person. And for me, I think it's very important that you treat others how you want to be treated. So I always treated others with respect, with kindness, and for the most experience, I had great relationships and, good connections with people. But again, there are people out there that they're negative or they've had bad experiences or they've had a shitty upbringing, and that's fine. Everyone has their own experiences, but that doesn't mean you take it out on other people. That doesn't mean you project it on other people. It doesn't mean you pull down other people, specifically women pulling down other women. There's been enough of that, and I think obviously with social media and everything nowadays you see that more often, whereas maybe back in the day it was within your like local community or local school or wherever you're at. And it's sad because it's like, man, the last thing you should be doing is putting down another woman or degrading someone, saying, oh, yeah, you totally could be at that level. And then you hate on her for actually getting to that level, or you have people that are supporting her and you're not happy or you're jealous or envious because she's at that level. And it's tough because like I said, I've seen a lot of that over the years. And whether that's close within the community in the gym you're at or from afar, other places, it's horrible. And I'm like, the last thing I want to do is be in another environment or any environment that's like that. And typically, from my experience, I'll get along with most people, but I've found that there are instances where some people, they just either have it out for you, or they just don't like who you are, or they're just jealous or envious of what you have, and they don't want you to have it. I'm not sure. It's I think maybe I don't completely understand because I'm not that type of person. That's not my mindset or my mentality. But I've learned that if you are in a negative environment or a toxic environment, and if you're able to separate or create distance between those people, and sometimes those people are your family members, sometimes those people are maybe the closest people in your life that you don't anticipate. If you can create distance or take yourself out of the environment, and like we said earlier, maybe you're not always able to do that. Maybe it's very difficult, and maybe you have to compartmentalize that and understand that not necessarily that you're shoving or closing emotions off or pushing emotions down, but understanding, all right, kind of like life-saving situations where, people detach almost from their mind or their emotions. Not that that's ideal or healthy in terms of the mindset or mentality, but maybe that's the best way to get through that period in your life.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's because I know there's a lot of people who can probably relate. Um, and if you've already taken that deep look at you and ask yourself like, hey, what is it that I'm presenting that's causing some friction? And sometimes everywhere you go, there's friction. And there's an old saying, wherever you go, there you are. So you do have to check,
Interesting.
look at yourself, look in the mirror, and be like, what am I presenting? But as you found out, sometimes people just aren't ready for you to succeed where they haven't succeeded. And
For
that,
sure.
I mean, I know guys in the space, in the firearm space, because, this is a firearm centric show. Um, so it's something that I kind of go back to often where, somebody's kind of on a good trajectory, but they're not really winning. And you're just like, hey man, keep going, bro. You'll make it. And then all of a sudden they pop off and you're just like, well, what happened to me? Why couldn't I pop off? Oh, they did this and they did that. And that's the cheap way to do it. And really, if you could have did it that way, you would have, but you didn't. And now you see somebody else with success and you're jealous and now you don't want to talk to that person. I've seen that before. It's awkward. It's really awkward. Um,
Yeah.
let's Speaking of firearms, you talked about, and I guess we won't transition there quite yet, but we've talked about you leaving to compete. um, how far did you end up going in CrossFit competition? Did you win anything? What did you get close? Did you not win at
Yeah.
all? And then transition us to how you got into tactical games.
Yeah, so I first qualified for so back in the day it was kind of like three stages. You did like the open, the regionals, and then the games.
You said
And the
back in the
first
day,
year,
like 15 years ago.
yeah, like 2013, I'm like, wasn't 2013 like last year? I'm like, oh, actually that was like 12
Mm-mm.
years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, just because how they qualify now, it's changed a handful of times. So just to kind of make it easy and streamline, is essentially it was kind of like a three-step process. You do the open. That's what it was called. Open was essentially there was 5 to eventually 3 weeks or 4 weeks of workouts, and then when you qualified from there, you made it to regionals. So I qualified for regionals 2012 as my first year. Then in 2013, I qualified from regionals to the games. So essentially, it goes open, regionals, and then the games. And the games essentially worldwide. And so I qualified in 2013 after 2 years of CrossFit to the games my rookie year. And then I qualified consistently for 6 years in a row, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, from the open to the regionals to the games. In 2018, I won my region, which was the South region at the time, and then qualified onto the games. And then at the games, I competed 6 years as a row as individual, and then in 2019 I went as a team. So that's 2019 is when they changed kind of some of the strategies and how you could qualify. They had sanctional events, and so in 2018, I had kind of end of 2018, I was like, you know what, this has been very difficult. I had launched my wine business and brand in 2017 at the games, and to run a business, launch a business, run a business, and compete full time and continue to do that at the games at the same time was difficult. Like I had my wine tasting, my
Seems a little
inaugural wine.
crazy.
It's a lot crazy, and like I don't think I realized what I was trying to do. I look back and I'm like, holy crap, I did a lot, all of that, and I think I didn't give myself another option to not do that. Right? It was I have to get my license by this time. I have to be able to focus on competition so I can qualify the games. And then I have to go back to business, making sure I have all the bottles, corks, capsules, my labels printed, my wine produced, and then also get it to the shipped off to the distributor so I could launch it 2017. So after doing that for like over a year, year and a half, from kind of end of 2016 into 2017 to 18, I was like, all right, I think this will be my last year competing as an individual. So 2019 rolled around. I did my last kind of individual competition at the Rogue Invitational. And then in 2019, I competed as a team of four, two girls, two guys, with Invictus X. And that was a great experience to do team, do something different. And then after that, I kind of thought, you know what, this is great. I've, been competing for many, many years. I love it, but it's hard to run my business and grow my business and brand while continuously also trying to compete full time, spending 6 to 8 hours a day in the gym, trying to physically be somewhere and then mentally be somewhere else and then switch, right? So now I'm mentally somewhere else, but I'm physically there. So it was hard. I was able to do it, but it's very difficult to do both things at 100%.
I mean, you
And then
seem type A. And that's not an insult.
just
It's
just a little bit.
a big old compliment. My wife is the same way. And,
Thanks.
the type of person to lay in bed and you can't stop it. Like you're still
It's
running through your
hard.
checklist. And
Yeah,
it's
I'm like,
like,
oh, I should be doing this. I'm sitting here relaxing. My body, my nervous system probably needs this, but I'm like, oh, but I need to film and I need to do this. So,
mm-hmm.
but
God
anyway,
forbid
so
you
at
enter
20,
the world of
yeah.
social media. My God, it makes no sense. But
Oh my goodness.
kudos to you.
Oh.
And people will say all sorts of stuff. And I was having a conversation about a national organization that's been going through a lot of heat. I was talking with the president of said organization, and just through that conversation, I realized that even though there were some serious mistakes made and things just there was problems, people don't realize how much work it takes to start a thing, you know, to start
Hmm.
your rifle company, a la Rostic Arms, my buddy up in Michigan, or to start the wine company, or to compete like for real in a nationally recognized sport, competition, CrossFit. Um,
Hmm.
People don't realize, and even if something comes up, oh, someone got a bottle and the label was weird, or it didn't meet your
Or it
standards.
froze and the cork popped.
Oh my! You see,
Yeah.
it sounds like this happened. Um,
Yes.
just crazy stuff happens, and it's like, how much of that is Margot's fault, and how much of that is just chance, and she's doing the best she can, and she'll do everything she can to make it right. But at the end of the day, there's you're one person, or you and your team. You're individuals, you're humans. You're not God. Like you can't
For sure.
control the temperature of everything, and so
Exactly.
it's hard, and I'm just acknowledging that it's hard, and walking myself through this. So forgive me if I'm taking over.
No, it's good. I think it's important because I think, yourself myself, anyone else out that runs a business or starting a business or even having a business, continuing to keep a business active, it's a lot of work. There is so much that it's kind of like the whole, not meme, but you see that image of like the tip of the iceberg, right? What people see, and then everything underneath is this entire base of the mass of the iceberg.
Yeah.
There's so much that people don't see. And I think it's difficult because you want to, you want to continue to push on. You want to be strong. You want to say, all right, I can do this. But like the amount of times, if I went on and say, all right, cool, the amount of times that was told no, or I didn't receive any emails, or didn't receive a call back with trying to get my wine into distributors or wine shops, or try to host events. I mean, it would be a laundry list, but it's like, okay, I'm not gonna, bitch and complain about it, but I'm gonna like get back up. And again, same thing with that other saying, you get back, you get hit 8 times, you get back up 9 times, right? You continue to push forward. And it was really difficult because you can have a plan and a vision, and you can have an idea of like, all right, this is what I have, and this is what I'm planning, and this is where I'm going, and you can communicate that. But then you have something massive, like COVID and the shutdowns come, and you have no control over that. You're not able to do events. You're not able to travel. The plan that you anticipated for 1, 2, 3, and 5 years just goes out the window. And people are like, oh, like, how are things? I'm like, well, I'm hoping they'll get better, but this has taken a lot longer than you anticipate. But it's hard because people don't get that. And you try to communicate that, and you try to make sure that you're doing a great job to say, hey, like, there are hardships and I'm going to continue and I could push through. I'm not just going to claim bankruptcy and stop. Like, I'm going to continue to fight for this. But people don't realize, like, you might be on that straight line path or that even upward trajectory, but then you might just hit this downward, like, 1 year, 2 year, there might be that downward trajectory, but then at some point starts to turn around. But again, it takes time, but people don't realize that. People don't understand that.
Hmm.
And I think some people do. But again, if you've never had any handle in business, if you haven't really pulled back the curtains or seen behind what's going on, you can't speak to that. And it's frustrating. I think people don't realize like the amount of work and time. And I imagine there are a lot of probably farms or red tape or a lot of red tape with firearms. And I know for wine, there's a lot of licensing. Like each state is their own license, their own country.
Hmm.
I license, and to get a new license I have to pay $1,000 registration fee, and then I need to pay an additional fee to each label. So if I have 5 labels, I now have to pay an additional $500 to get each label in. And so again, like, I'm not going to go on to like explain all these nuances, but people just don't understand and see that, and I think it's frustrating. But again, like, I can't control that, so I put my energy in what I can control: my effort, my energy, my attitude, my environment. What can I do to continue to push forward? How can I block the naysayers to the side and focus on what I can actually have an impact on, and do what I need to do to continue to move forward?
No, that's fantastic, and I can appreciate you sharing. And you didn't even say much, but you said so much, where it's like, oh my gosh, like imagine if you're not some trust fund kid or some billion-dollar corporation or literally a multimillionaire, how are you supposed to invest $1,000 a state to go here to here and everywhere? And it's like, oh well, how much if we once we get there, who's the distributor? Like what are we supposed to do
Exactly.
with that? So
Yeah, they're
that's
like, who's your sales team? Like, me, myself, and I.
my God. And I understand that. I didn't go to SHOT Show this year. For those who are familiar, it's one of the biggest trade shows for the firearms and outdoors and whatnot. And I'm watching on social media because if I went to SHOT Show, I'm probably going to spend a couple grand getting there and housing myself and doing the things that I need to do, right? And then going from that to, okay, well, I'm at home. Can I maximize my time at home? Can I see what products are out and send some emails and try to find that balance and match deliverables with expectations and such? And you get so far into an email chain, and then it's like, well, okay, so they're going to send you something, but like all your other terms and things that you need from the brand, it's not there. And you're just like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And it's not even a no. It's like we got you, except not really. We don't like you that much. And I'm sure you've run
Yeah.
into situations where you're trying to work with, distributors. I use the word distributor like 6 times. That's all I know.
No, that's right. It's
Um,
perfect. It's a perfect example.
right. And, people, your partners in the space, and you're trying to work with people, or maybe even have family and friends who they're like, well, we love that you're doing this, but they've never bought a bottle. What?
It, yeah, and it's interesting because I think back, like, if you're looking from the distributors, like, I've learned a lot through the wine business, and I've learned a lot of, like, what not to do, what to do, where do I spend my energy, and how do I reevaluate when I do my next production, how that's going to work. And for me, I look at it as, all right, well, I might know this person and they're going to bring the wine in, but they're going to ask, what's my case production? What's my price point? They want to know, how many cases am I producing? What's my price point? How quickly is this going to move? If I'm going to bring you in, why am I going to bring you in versus Robert Mondavi or Orin Swift? Why am I going to bring you in under a brand that's well known for, decades versus you're relatively new? And
Hmm.
for me, it's like, and it's tough because the wine industry, not to say it's like the mafia, but there isn't pay to play, right? You're not allowed to pay to play, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that are like pay to play. So, hey, I'm gonna bring, this wine in. Oh, here are Beyonce tickets to a show. Well, I don't have tickets to Beyonce that I can give you. I can bring my community, I can bring myself, I can bring events, I can do a lot of social media and branding, and I have a big Rolodex of individuals that I can connect with. So it's tough when you have these big companies and big brands that are like, all right, well, my product's going to come in at like $4, and they have, a five for $50,000 case production. I'm like, okay, well, I have 2,400 cases. My price point maybe is $12, but again, I'm going to do as much as I can in my power to do this. So I understand where they're coming from, and I've had meaningful conversations with friends that are in that similar role. We're like, hey, we love your message, we love your branding, we love what you're doing, but we won't have a conversation with you until you have 10,000 case production. That's just a reality of the situation. So for myself, it's like, all right, well, let me work with a company or a smaller distributor that is more interested in bringing my product and brand in. But again, a lot of it comes down to, what's your price for it? What's your case production? Or how are you going to sell this? You're not physically here. Like, I got the wine into Montana, I got the wine into Wisconsin, I got the wine into um, Colorado, and that's great. But again, now that the wine's there, I need to physically go do events. So now I'm boots on the ground, grassroots effort. Now I need to pay for hotel, for gas, for all this other trip. I'm gladly willing to do it. But again, like, I need to make sure, like, hey, I'm working with you. Like, let's do something together. Yeah, yeah. Send me an email. We'll set up events. And then it's crickets. So it's like, again, kind of like you're putting all this energy out. You're continuously putting out. And you don't have to say, all right, cool, I'm going to continue to do this. But it's finding that balance of, all right, what's worth my time and energy? Where should I go?
Yeah. No, channel member and supporter of the show, Black Powder Podcast, sent in a comment saying the "What can you do for us" attitude versus "Let's do something" or "Let's do great business" attitude. Which, I mean, that's the facts. I mean, as a
Hmm.
gun guy and an influencer and creator myself, I'm just like, I've been there where you walk up to a brand and I was very new one year and I'm at one of the NRA trade shows or something like that. And I walk up to a Microtech, the knife company.
Mm.
And I'm like talking to one of their reps who they're not reps. They're ladies who use the knives who Microtech is like, hey, I love your brand. Come hang out at our booth. I'm sure you've, the booth industry and trade shows for, fitness. I'm sure you've experienced that as well. Um,
Yeah.
and I was talking to him, I was like, hey, I'd love to, at some point work with these guys because they have a really cool product. What do you think? You think that's possible? And I was like, well, I don't work for the company, but they only work with people who have, X amount of subscribers or viewers and, vanity metrics, things that don't actually translate to like satisfaction, you know? But it's just fascinating to see like, it's not just in making content, it's everywhere. It's in big business, it's in smaller businesses where you're trying to get in, you're trying to make waves, but
For
until you
sure.
get them cases up, girl,
No.
come find
And
me
and
when you
again,
got 10,000 cases.
for sure. And again, not to talk bad about that. Like, I understand, like,
I
this
mean, it's
distributor,
business.
it is business, and I understand. And it's understanding, like, one, having a tough skin and not taking it personally. Like, cool, got it. I got to have 10,000 cases for that production. And for
Goal.
me, it's been very important to always build authentic and genuine relationships. Authenticity is something that is very high in my book. I think it's very important to be authentic, to be genuine. Like I said earlier, treat others how you want to be treated. So if I'm working with a brand or company, I want to hold myself to a high standard where it's like, all right, let's work together. What can we build together? Because I align with your values, you align with my values. We have this symbiotic or this cyclical positive relationship where, not the, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I feel like that kind of has like a negative connotation, but it's more like, kind of, let's do great business together. Like he was saying, how can we work together in a positive fashion? And it shouldn't have to be just about your followers, but the community. What is the message that you're bringing? What are you continuing to support? And for me, it's about uplifting and inspiring other individuals out there. It doesn't have to be just be women, but women, men that are interested in taking, their health as a priority. They want to obviously feel strong. They want to be prepared. And that's not just the physical aspect, right? Whether that's firearms training, whether that's eating a little healthier, whether it's getting your mom off your couch and walking around the block for a little bit, that preparation that you put into your time and yourself, it varies, right? But it's all very important about building authentic and genuine relationships, at least in my eye. And I think aligning yourself with someone that sees the value in that is important. And maybe you don't always meet eye to eye, or you guys are on the same page, but then it's figuring out, all right, maybe I don't say yes to this because I'm foregoing something on my page, or they're foregoing something on their page in terms of their values that they find important. But I think it's really important. I've learned over the years that you know you might have to say no to certain things to say yes to other things, and that could be a contract, that could be a company, that could be friendships, anything. All right. And again, it's just sometimes learning is the best way to go through that. Experiences can be the best way to find that out. Again, not always are they going to be positive. Maybe you learn something that's, oh man, like wish I would have learned that earlier, but now I know, so I don't repeat that mistake in the future. So
Yeah, no, that's good. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, with we mentioned a little bit about the firearms. We mentioned the tactical games. Before we get to tactical games, and I've said this already, but before we get there, where is the wine brand now? I know you said that you guys are kind of like in a restocking season and you're trying to get back into it, or
yeah.
COVID was over 4 years ago. Come on, girl, where are we at? Where the wine at?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I am working on the next production. I sold out in like end of 2022, 2023. So almost two
Nice.
years, but the residual kind of with bottle prices and label and printing, all that is kind of dwindled or held on for a bit. So I'm hoping to hopefully do it later this year. But essentially, it'll be a red blend, which is what I had before, a Petite Syrah Garnacha blend. I have my website, just Margaux Alvarez. I'll post updates once I have all that, and then I also have my Instagram, the MCA Wine, which I'll have out there. So, but
Okay, cool.
essentially, it will
Make sure to
be.
send that to me so I can add it to the notes.
Yeah, for sure I will. I'm hoping that the label is depending on TTB and the approval, but my whole brand message is work hard, wind down. But I have a picture that my youngest sister took of my middle sister Kirsten before she passed, and she did some editing back in like 2007, but it looks like the celestial sky in her back. So it's like this rendition. It's a very dark black label with the coloring, the outline of her body, and in her back it looks like the celestial sky, like when you look up to the sky. So it's like stars. And for me, it really moved me because it made me really think, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just transcends, right? So her spirit, or she's no physically longer here, but that's awesome. I appreciate the support. But I know that her spirit and her soul is with us. And so the goal will be able to use this image as the logo, or as the kind of logo of the wine, but also the brand label of what you see on the, technically it's the backside of the bottle. But the goal, given TTB's approval, I'll be able to utilize that for the label. So once I have all that, I'll post and share.
Excellent. I know you had interrupted yourself and said that's awesome.
Oh,
Just for
that's
the
okay.
audio listeners, Black Powder Podcast said, I'll buy a bottle. Thumbs up emoji. I appreciate you supporting
Yeah,
the people who support us, and being here supports us. Thank you, Margaux.
of
Now,
course.
let's transition to the part that everyone's been waiting for, just
The
holding on
tactile
to the edge of
games.
their seats, tactical games. And we will, hopefully, we have a little bit of time and we can talk about oh my gosh, Tulsi Gabbard, who just went through her, I guess, appointment stuff today, trying to get a cabinet seat. But
Confirmation, yeah.
her confirmation hearing. Look at me. Um, and I think she's still in the middle of all that, but it's
I think, yeah, I
fascinating to
have
see.
today. I haven't popped on my phone much today, so I'm like, I haven't
Yeah,
really been able to see any updates.
yeah, it's fascinating to see because as she kind of transitioned out of the Republican Party, or not Republican Party, as she transitioned out of the Democrat Party and kind of became more independent and eventually became, I guess, an ally to the current president, she visited with the owner of Tactical Games. And I know you said you were going to be there, but it didn't work out or something like that.
Yeah, so I had thought about, I was trying to do the tactical games in 2021, but it didn't really work out timing wise. I was traveling a lot, trying to do a lot of yoga wine nights for the brand and business. And so was like, well, if I'm going to do a tactical games, I need to do some training. And I only recently, I would say the past not even 4 years, I guess 2 years getting into training with firearms. My husband had left for COVID and he was in New York. And so I was kind of by myself. And during that time, someone had broken into my garage and it was like a
In like
big
2020
violation
or 21?
in 2020. Yeah, it was May of 2020. And they stole some equipment. They stole some stuff from the CrossFit Games. And I wasn't so, I mean, I was upset and I was mad. It was more like, damn, that's my privacy. Like, what happens if they come back for more? What happens if they come back and they know where I live and they try to get, and luckily, like, the garage was detached, but it's like, you all this what if, like, what if this, what if that, right? And so took a couple classes in terms of like a firearm, like AR, shotgun, pistol, just to like have some basic knowledge. Because like, what happens if it happens again? And I'm by myself, and I want to make sure I'm protected. And so, I mean, I'm originally from Montana. I never really grew up hunting, so I didn't have a lot of like experience with firearms. And so that was kind of mid-ish 2020 was kind of the first time I got introduced really to firearms. I ended up getting my CCW, and then I took like a one-on-one class again with firearms. And then in 2022, I thought about 2021 and tactical games, didn't end up doing it, just didn't have, I had so much on my plate, didn't get to it.
It
So in
just
2022,
just is like, hey, I'm shooting guns now. I'm just gonna go hard, like as you always do
balls
with
to the wall, I
everything.
know.
I like
Yeah.
wine. Let me just own the company. Oh, I like working out. Let's just go all the way. Quit my job, become a competitor.
Yeah.
You're doing
Yeah,
too
I
much,
think
but it's cool. I'm here for it.
I don't know why, but I tend to gravitate towards putting myself in uncomfortable or hard situations. I think maybe that's
Yeah.
how I elevate myself. I don't know. I
Hey,
ask myself, like, why do I do this to myself?
it's who you are. I'm here
Yeah.
for it.
So in 20, yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
2022 comes around. I think it was like June. A friend of mine, her name is Laura Zara. She's a big backcountry guide survivalist. She was on Naked and Afraid multiple seasons. She had a team of four. One girl couldn't come, and essentially it was the Hunter Games presented by Sig Sauer. And this was in Wyoming. She's like, "Hey, I need a fourth teammate." I was like, "I'm all in." I was like, "I haven't done much shooting, but I'll, hopefully hold my own." I was able to hold my own. I for sure was, fitness wise, I was fine, but it was more the shooting because there was a lot of hunters and guides on our team. But that was kind of like, all right, that kind of got the ball rolling. And after that, I ended up going to 6 Hour at their kind of new inaugural launch at their new facility, training facility in New Hampshire. And then I was like, all right, let's do some more training. Let's actually sign up for tactical games. I signed up for tactical games. I think it was end of end of August, beginning of September. I was like, F it, or no, sorry, end of September or October. I can't remember. But I was like, I only had about 4 or 5 weeks to train. I was like, all right, well, here we go. 5 days a week to the range, like start learning. And my husband was prior military, so he had done just drills and things that we'd gone over and just practice kind of implementation. And we watched a lot of YouTube videos because I was like, we don't really know what's going to be on the events
Who are
because
you
you don't
watching?
know.
Just like
Again?
tactical games footage, or are
Yeah,
you talking
tactical
about
games
like
events. Yeah, just
different?
footage of events that they had to say, hey, all right, what do they have? Do they have us pull sleds? Do we have to carry farmer carries? Are we running? What are we doing? And so we just looked at all the videos from previous events to say, all right, this is maybe an idea of what I need to train. So I did a lot of stuff with my plate carrier, sandbag work, farmer carries, sled drags, anything that might possibly come up. And so when I did the event, I'm trying to remember, I can't remember. I want to say it was October because September, October, because I remember I couldn't make it to the next week because the Rogue Invitation was right around there. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. This was like 2 or 3 years ago. Anyway, so ended up going to the event. Absolutely loved it. For sure, my fitness was fine, but it was more the shooting I needed more experience on. But it was a great experience. I was like, wow, this is way hard because I didn't have a scope. I just had a red dot on my rifle. And so a lot of the rifle shots are 50 yards. And so I'm like, I think I see the triangle. And you have like a traditional piece of paper, like 8 by 11. And then you have like this little mini triangle or a circle. And I'm like, I can't even see that from here. So it was a huge learning experience. A lot of people, almost everyone had scopes versus a red dot. So learned a lot there, but it was incredible time. I think for it definitely pushed myself outside my comfort zone. It was very grassroots, like small community. I absolutely loved it. I knew a handful of people there from CrossFit.
Hmm.
Who she's with Under Armour and she does a lot of the tactical events now. She's out of Washington, I believe.
What was her name?
I could be so it's EHEA. She's super cool, but she and I competed together in 2018 at the CrossFit Games, and so she moved into that realm. So it was really rad to compete with other women, other people in that space. Again, new people through the CrossFit space. there obviously is a little bit of trickle over because it is a blend of fitness and shooting. I would say it's about 50-50. There's different levels, and you can do as elite or intermediate, and they even have, I think, a tactical division. So if you are Leo or in the military, you can kind of essentially go into that. From what I knew back then, or for what the rules were back then, the only main difference was that you had a red dot in your pistol, where if you were elite or intermediate, you didn't have a red dot in your pistol. So it was a really cool experience. Absolutely loved it. Qualified for nationals, which I think was like 2 weeks after that. But I had the Rogue Invitational like week before, so it was hard to go back to back to Texas after that. But again, found out later Tulsi was ended up being at nationals. It would have been really cool to just have the opportunity to meet her. But I haven't been able to do any tactical games since then. I've been dealing with a really bad back injury and sciatica this past year and a half, and so it's finally getting better. So this year, there's one in October in Arizona again that I'd like to go compete at. So, and again, I know this was a lot of talking. I can talk a
No,
lot, obviously.
well, that's good.
But for
You can
me,
talk. It's good.
it for me it was really like, hey, like I don't have a lot of firearms training. I want to be more proficient so that I'm not scared. And obviously, you always, abide by the rules. You always are precautionary. You always make sure that safety is a number one priority. But for me, it's like I don't know a lot about firearms. I want to be more proficient. I want to be understanding of how to hand my pistol, my rifle, and tactical games for me, training for that was great because it put myself in different environments of, hey, you're not always going to have the same workout over and over. It's different. Maybe you have 5 rounds to this shot. Maybe you need to shoot with your left hand because you're having to shoot off the left side of the obstacle that we have. And I think it was really good for me to put myself in an uncomfortable environment and challenge and push myself. And obviously you constantly can level up and move. And more recently I've done more training that's not so much based around the tactical rules, but more just about different situational awareness. And
Mm.
again, just and just doing something new and different and not always saying this is how I'm always going to train. Obviously the dry fire drills are great because I think that's where I can refine my skills. And for me, I just want to be an advocate for women out there like, hey, like I was unsure. I was super timid when I first picked up a pistol or rifle or shotgun. Like I don't know what to do. And I just hopefully can, if women, and I had a lot of people and a lot of messages, especially after the tactical games, and even after that, saying, "Oh my gosh, you inspired me to take my first class. I'm gonna go get my CCW. I'm going to the range with my husband or a partner. Or hey, like I really don't feel comfortable going with a guy. He was really rude or really condescending. Do you know any female instructors?" So it was an outlet for women to reach out to say, hey, so cool to see what you're doing. Do you have any advice or what would you recommend for me to do my first tactical games or
Yeah.
my first pistol, like what do you recommend? And so for me it was just like, all right, this is my experience and my journey. Hopefully I can share it and that gives some other women or men out there inspiration or some insight or hopefully confidence to say, all right, let me do this for myself as well.
Wonderful. And now I did want to ask, and we'll ask this in a moment, about maybe one of the hardest things that you ended up having to do at not the Hunger Games, but the tactical games. But almost said it. And then,
Yeah.
but before we do that, you mentioned some ladies reached out, very supportive. They thought it was inspirational. As much as you're an entrepreneur and an athlete, you're also an influencer or somebody who um, maintains and retains a ton of influence just because you've been out there, you've done the things, um, and I think that's really cool. But did you get the other side? Because when you have big enough platforms, people don't always agree with you. And people might
For
say,
sure.
why are you so scared? You don't need a gun. And why are you working out so much just to now you want to kill somebody? And it's like, people say also, I've been called a baby killer. Like,
Yeah.
I've been called these things. I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet. What are you talking about? But
Yeah.
what did you get any of that? Or were you maybe
Oh,
spared
for
from the,
sure,
okay,
100%.
well, let's talk
Oh
about
no,
it.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. You'll
I
get
need
to
the
the juicy
nasty
details.
comments. What'd you get?
Well, and just to give some like reflection back, like I think the first time I posted anything gun related was in 2015 when I got my first shotgun. And I think I posted on Facebook, and there was a flood of comments. Most of them were from outside the US, like, oh my God, why do you want
Dude.
to kill people? Like, I'm like, oh my God, I have a shotgun for protection because my partner is going back and forth and I'm by myself for weeks at a time. And at the time, I wasn't doing any training. I'd done my CCW class in Texas, but I was traveling for seminars, coaching, and I wasn't able to get it in time, so I didn't necessarily close that loophole. But it was, yeah, I got a lot of like negative comments, like I can't follow you anymore, like you're gonna kill people. And for me, at first, I was like, oh my gosh, like how could people say this? I'm not gonna kill any people. Like I got this for my protection to make sure if I ever am in a situation where I need to protect myself or save myself, like I have a tool that's gonna help me. Because if there was an individual, say it's a man that's twice my size or twice my body weight, like no offense, but I'm not going to be able to fight him off. Like that determining difference to maybe my life being my own and saving it or being taken is going to be a firearm. Like maybe a knife, but what happens if he grabs that knife and then uses it on me? And so I was just taken back by so many comments, so many negative comments. And then over the years, again, more people, I think what you put out on social media, obviously, for me, not just for me, I don't want to put a negative connotation to influencer because I think a lot of people they do have influence, and I understand and I acknowledge that I do have influence, but I also want to I want to be an ambassador of someone say, hey, this is my page, my profile. This is what I find authentic and genuine to myself that's important and I value in my life. And hopefully, by sharing that with others, this can be helpful and inspiring and maybe an influence in a positive way to your life. If you don't like it, totally fine. We are all entitled to our own opinions. We are all entitled to what we believe. And I've had people recently, especially on X/Twitter, where they're like, "Hey, I don't maybe agree with your with your policies, your politics, or how you believe, or what you say on certain things, but I do believe and I do love what you're doing for fitness and what you're advocating for people to be healthy and active." And I was like, well, thank you. I acknowledge that. Again, I think it's important that everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I was just taken back by all like the negative stuff where like you're gonna kill people, you're killing kids. And I was just like, I can't imagine, like, you don't like my post, you don't want to follow me anymore, by all means go ahead and unfollow. You don't need to tell me that. You can just do it on your own. You could just maybe leave not those comments on my page or not be
Right.
so. And I think it's
It's not an
interesting where
airport. You don't got to announce your departure.
exactly. Like it's interesting. And again, if I take this back to the fitness, I've had people say, "Oh, you look like a man. You look like a horse. You look like an NFL player." I'm like, "Cool, bro. I'm only 5'7", not even close to that, but thanks." But again, it's come back to comments, even like just negative, and I'm like, "Would you say this to my face in person? Most likely not." And I think
Probably not.
people on social
People
media,
scared of
it's
getting
like they have
smacked.
exactly. I think it's also accountability or lack of accountability, but also repercussions and also boundaries. Like how would you tell and it was here, just sorry to interrupt myself, but one thing that I really found very taken back was on some of my YouTube videos that I put out. And it was a gentleman, and he was saying, I can't even remember what it was because it was years ago, but it was just so negative. Like, oh man, like you look like a man, you shouldn't be doing these workouts, you should just go sit and crawl in a corner. And I was like, taken back by this. And my husband did a little research, found out this guy has a daughter. And I'm thinking, you're talking to a female like this? Like, is that what you would say to your daughter? What if another male was saying this to your daughter?
Mm.
And it blows my mind. So, long story short, yes, I have gotten those comments, and I'm fortunate. I think over the years, I've toughened my skin in the sense where, like, you know what? Not everyone's going to agree with me, and that's fine. Everyone's
Yeah.
entitled to their own opinion, and that is fine as well. But
Yeah.
people think they have this microphone that they can just spew hatred. It's like, hey man, we don't maybe always align on the same page, but if you don't like something, just keep scrolling. You don't need to be like, I'm gonna tell them a piece of my mind.
Yeah, you made so many excellent points. I mean, I encountered that when I was first getting started. In fact, I took it personally when I first. Why are we having these focus issues? Come on. Camera was getting real fuzzy. I remember when I first got started, I was so concerned with what other people would say. I was like, let me not say anything that leans too much this way politically or this way politically because I don't want to alienate people. And it's like at some point you do have to have an opinion. That's what people are drawn to you for is
To me.
what do you have to say? And we can
Hmm.
disagree. And some people, they like to disagree. And that's okay too, you know?
For
And
sure.
ultimately, when you're talking about accountability and repercussions, it seems like there's not quite enough of that. And I'm not saying that every time you leave a mean comment or say something that could be taken the wrong way, because some things are not meant to be mean, although some things are, right? And
Hmm.
I'm not saying that there was this old commercial where if something bad happened, you could like activate your trunk monkey and it would come out and like handle the business. It was an old Super Bowl commercial. Like I'm not saying we got to activate the trunk monkey and it's got to like
Yeah.
run over to their house and just bonk them with a wrench, but like at some level, we have to say like, hey, listen, you're saying that to me, that's fine. And I'm not saying I'm going to call your employer and tell them that you did this because I'm not a snitch. But like, think about the children, man, your children. And another young lady I had on the show, she referenced something similar where she took 60 seconds and like researched some guy leaving like terrible comments, found out who he was, found out who he was married to, where he worked, everything. I'm just like, you got to be
Damn.
really dumb to say like wild, like crazy stuff to people on a public account. Like,
For
you got to
sure.
be dumb.
Well, and I think also too, like people, and I don't know if it's again the individuals or the mindset of these individuals where it's like, I'm just gonna put all this on social media. It's like, hey man, if you have like a real issue, maybe have a conversation or like have a direct message. But again, I don't think it's necessarily they want to have a conversation. They just want to
No,
spew hatred. They just want to amplify the voice and say, oh, you're killing people, or oh, you're gonna cause all these deaths. It's like, well, no, that's not gonna happen. But why you continue to do this? And I think it's also too like majority of the comments are positive and uplifting and supportive, and there's a
yeah,
sprinkling negative, and it's hard to like not get focused on that. And it's like, damn, dude, like why you gotta like hate on my Cheerios? It just for me it doesn't make sense. And I think it's types of individuals that are again either they're projecting from what they have going on in their life, they're not happy or they're not content,
yeah.
or they
We
want to
talked
bring
about that earlier.
for sure. And again, it's interesting. It just blows my mind. I think I've over the years, I'm like, you know what? You don't always agree. That's fine. This is my channel, my platform. You don't want to be a part of it. That's totally fine. Like, but I want to share what I'm passionate about. I want to share my learning experience. I want to show my learning curves. And a while ago, when I first started posting, like I think I posted a story of like my shots on a target, and they were horrible. They were like everywhere. I mean, they were on like the body, but they were like weren't like a group, a close grouping.
Hmm.
And the place that I was at was kind of like, oh, why is she putting that up? That's gonna look bad on us. And I was like, damn, dude. I was like, I'm just trying to show my progress. Like we all start somewhere. Like we're all not perfect.
Hmm.
We all couldn't lift, 95 pounds or squat 300 pounds. Like I'm not gonna always be hitting the target. Have I gotten better? For sure, 100%. Can I still improve? 1000%. But it's like if I just say, oh, I'm perfect all the time, people are like, well, I can't do that either. I'm like, oh, she's just perfect. Like, no, no one's perfect. But it's
Yeah.
through the repetition and it's through the evaluation of our work and the reflection of, all right, what can I get better? What can I do better? Where's my finger? Where's my trigger? Like, am I too far past the trigger? Am I just on my tippy toe? Am I right at the crease of my thigh on my thumb? Is my hand too far down below? Like, is my web exactly right where it needs to be? Again, it's just evaluation, but you're just gonna be again haterade right from the beginning. It's like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll go somewhere
These people are
else.
crazy. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating because you mentioned this before, talking about how as you got into the space, people who maybe would normally support women or claim to be supportive of women, it's fascinating because people support women all day until they realize that said woman will do anything to protect her life. And they're not comfortable with that. And
Which
then
is
it's doing too
wild.
much. Yeah. Yeah. Like they want you to be helpless, a damsel in distress. They want you
Hmm.
to require whatever it is they have to offer. And I'm not going to make it like a political thing, but it's easy to manipulate people and to control people when they're helpless. But when you
For sure.
can control your own destiny in the sense that if somebody tries to hurt you, you can stop them. You can actually stop the threat, not, oh, please stop, or, blow a whistle. No, you
Yeah,
can end it right then. Like you have that control.
exactly.
And they're not comfortable with that. Why?
100%.
Why aren't they
It, it,
comfortable with
it
that?
blows my mind on that. And I
Wine.
think, like you said, like, why? Well, I know wine. Clearly, it's wine time. Just kidding.
Mm,
But it is like, well, why wouldn't you want them to be in a position where they have control of their environment or control the situation where they aren't defenseless? Like, I've seen way too many videos, especially recently. Obviously, social media can be pluses and minuses and pros and cons, but I've seen so many videos of people being attacked or surprised out of nowhere. And I'm like, I just don't want to leave my life or the protection of my family up to someone else. Like I want to make sure that I'm prepared. And yes, that takes work, that takes repetition. Like I got to do dry fire drills. I have to practice not only pulling from my holster, but also pulling from my fanny pack when I walk or when I run. Where am I typically carrying and where do I need to make sure that I'm comfortable? Not that you're ever going to be comfortable, but you want to make sure that you're prepared and you've practiced. So in a situation where adrenaline's pumping, you're able to say, all right, what do I need to do to take care of myself? Obviously,
Yeah.
not be putting yourself not in that environment is important, but also we're not going to be able to control everything all the time.
Hmm.
All, and
Yeah.
it just,
Shoot.
again, it blows my mind that people don't like, oh, you need to be defenseless. You need to like ask someone else for help. Yeah, well, what if I ask for help and no one's around? And then it's 15, 20 minutes. I'm up Shit's Creek. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's fascinating. We the other day we had a conversation with a young lady who she did a grappling Brazilian jiu-jitsu match, and she
Awesome.
won. Fantastic. We're happy
Heck
for
yeah.
her.
Good for her.
And she was telling a story because we're in Texas, and she was telling a story. She was at one of the world's greatest gas stations, Bucky's, and she's walking. It's a nice family oriented
I love
place,
Bucky's.
right? And so she goes in and she is getting ready. Well, she doesn't go in. She's sitting in her car getting ready to pump gas, and there's this van, like a really creepy, like creeper, like free candy van, like
No
just behind her,
windows.
just
Yeah.
waiting. And she's like, I'm just going to give them a few minutes, let them get out and pump their gas. And they never did get out. And eventually they left after pulling up behind her. And then they left with nothing. And okay, maybe they had something else they had to do. Whatever.
Mm.
Strange. No coincidences, but strange. Then she goes into the store and realizes that there's like three guys like hanging out outside of her car. Yeah. And she's, super short, like 5'2", you know, gal. And it's like, what could possibly come of this? And I was super proud of her because she did the hard thing, which shouldn't be hard, and asked one of the employees to walk her to her car, which I don't think
Good for
enough
her.
women are willing to do that. And as somebody who
Yeah.
works in security myself, I'm happy to help. In fact, give me something to do. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
was happy to hear that she did that, and it avoids her being in the situation where if somebody decides to come at her, now she has to use deadly force. Let's
Yeah.
avoid the whole thing altogether because that is probably the worst few years of your life. Now that you're in court, now you're in litigation, now somebody's trying to sue you because you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to shoot my baby.
Which,
Foolishness like that.
I
So
mean, goes back to being like, well, why are you even trying to attack her? Why are you being around her car? Why is there you and two other people trying to, not say they're going to jump her, but like, again, goes back to like, why are you even there? And
mhm.
it's not that you want to think like that. And I think before it was just like, I was like, do, everything's great. Everyone's nice. Everyone's like super friendly. But I'm like, man, there's
Until they're
not
not.
until they're not exactly. And like, I don't think you, until you start to realize or until you start to kind of peel back that layer. And I think over the past couple years, a lot of that layers for a lot of people have been pulled back, and people are like, oh, we're not just living in follow la la land. Like we're understanding we need to take priority for ourselves, and we need to take responsibility for ourselves because we can't necessarily leave it at someone else's disposal. But also in a situation like that, we're like, okay, man, ask for help. Like it's okay to ask for, hey, can you come with me in my car? And again, you hear these stories or you see video clips, and it's just like, man, it breaks my heart that we have to live like that. But again, you either take responsibility and rise up to make sure that you are safe, or that you and your people and your family are safe. Because if not, leaving it up to someone else is just, you can't wait for that.
It's interesting because we had a comment said, I guess people are mad because it doesn't fit the social stereotype of what a strong woman is. In the gym, you going and competing at a high level, and then you going and getting a gun and getting training and doing these things. It's like that's not what society says strong women do. You got to be a girl boss CEO, leave
Interesting.
the kids
Yeah.
to be raised by somebody else. That kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then it's just when you say like, "Hey, I'm gonna control what I can control. I'm gonna train myself to be hard to abduct, hard to kill, hard to traffic, all the
Yep.
things." Well, that's a step too far. And then they went on to say, no, Black Powder said, "Better to be around to tell the story than to become the story." And
100%.
if that flies in the face of all the things, because society says you need to not ask for help, you need to go to the car and get in your car and leave. And if something bad happens to you, it happens. You know,
Yeah. Oh, it's your fault. Like, excuse
yeah,
me?
yeah. It's nuts.
And it's interesting, like you said, because you think, oh, strong woman, like it's all these things, right? But it's like, oh, but except this. It's like, no, that's not necessarily the case. And when you said boss babe, it kind of made me think, I know this is kind of a hard jump, but
No,
like
good.
for me, I think the original like boss babe or the original like badass, at least in my eyes, growing up was Sarah Connor. Like,
Yeah.
and it gives me goosebumps just saying that. I'm like, oh, like, oh, like she
I
was
saw your
a
video on Sarah
badass.
Connor. That was great.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Cool. I'm glad you liked it. And I think for me, again, telling that story, it's like, and I think now maybe a lot of people don't know who Sarah Connor is. So maybe like, all right, you need to do a better job of saying who she is, or hey, go back and watch this movie. But for me, it's like that was the epitome. She was this innocent individual that could barely take care of herself. And she transformed to this like modern boss babe in the sense where like she's badass. She can take care of herself. She can fight. She can shoot. Like, it just gives me goosebumps, and like it makes me just think of this transformation of what she went through. And I feel like that a little bit of that is me in terms of my transformation of, not that I was weak or meek, but at one point I couldn't lift a lot of weight. I became stronger physically, mentally. Then I also transformed myself in terms of giving or learning the skills that I would need to handle a firearm, learning how to defend myself. And then, slowly starting to take jujitsu classes and, eventually continuing to compound and build upon that. And everyone's journey looks a little bit different, but hopefully other women will see that and say, hey, like you too can become, you know, comfortable and confident in your skin, but also have the tools to defend yourself, your family, and make sure you're knowledgeable versus leaving it to someone else.
Hmm.
And I hope that, anyone out there watching, listening, saying, all right, cool. Like if you are, you don't have that, you lack that self-confidence, or you're not really sure what path or what direction, like hopefully you can find one thing that's like, all right, this is the one thing I'm going to add on for this year that I'm going to learn. Maybe that's self-defense, maybe that's jujitsu, maybe that's taking a CCW class, like anything that's going to help them become more
Yeah.
powerful, but also more confident in themselves.
I would add to that. Don't wait. Because a lot of people,
Yes.
they reach out to me specifically, people who know me, people who know, oh, he's doing the gun thing. Okay. And they say like, hey, can you take me to the range? And I'm like, 6 months. Yeah. I got you in 6 months. But don't wait. Don't wait for me. Don't wait for anybody. Like, get out there, watch a few YouTube videos on how to shoot. I'm not saying to go to self-teach yourself, although early on I self-taught, but actually take some initiative. And even if it costs a little bit of money, these are good skills to have, good skills to pass on to your children. I think the American tradition of arms has been largely lost. Most people don't know
Hmm.
how to shoot. Most people have never held a gun. In fact, it's kind of a novel thing. People go to shooting ranges and it's like, wow, what is this? And it's like,
Yeah.
why? Do have you ever held a shovel? Like, have you ever held an axe? Like, so many things are lost to convenience, and we've been able to outsource not just where we get our firewood from, but where we get our security from.
Yep. I agree. I think that's a great point, that people have outsourced a lot of goods and services, and you think it'll just like look Amazon for like anything, right? You can buy baby diapers, you can buy face wash, you could buy batteries, like all these things.
Hmm.
And like I think maybe a long time ago you had to go to a hardware store, then you had to go to a grocery store, and you had to go all these different places. But again, like don't wait. Like that's a great initiative. Like take the initiative, and I think there's a lot of things that were lost or continue to get lost. And I think some people, and depending on the environment, are able to, again, I think of, Oregon, Montana, you probably have more access to guns there because, you maybe need to protect yourself in a very rural area. You're, maybe having with a bear or deer or elk, or again, you might need to have more rifles on hand, or you might have rifles more consistently than if you live in a city where you don't have that or don't have access to that. And of course, the gun laws are different for each state and how that changes from state to state, similar to the wine where each state's different.
Absolutely. And I am somebody who's going by, oh, is that the real Overton Windex? Big fan. Anyways, just just said probably less people have held a shovel than a gun.
That's probably true.
And he also said, "You're on Montana. Whereabouts?" I'm in the Helena area.
Oh,
So
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I grew up, well, to answer the question, I grew up in Stevensville, 30 minutes south of Montana, or sorry, it was south of Missoula. Super small town, graduate with like 110 kids. I try to go back every year. So Bitterroot Valley, most of my family's in Missoula. I have some friends in Bozeman-ish area. Bozeman's completely different now. I do have some friends in Helena and US, of course, up near Glacier. So I love Montana. It's home. No matter where I'm at, Montana's home.
Man, I love that. Now, I guess because we're kind of coming to the end of this conversation, and I hope that people can really hold on to some of the things that you've said, where, even just some of the early things, talking about overcoming that loss and that grief. But it would be bad if we did this whole conversation and we didn't talk about some of the things that people can kind of do to help themselves progress through this year. I mean, it's February. I'm sure a bunch of people already fell off. How can they get back on the training, the fitness wagon, whatever it is? Because you understand human psychology in kind of a special way, right?
Hmm.
Can you help us to understand, like, whether it's guns or like actually like getting in the gym? How can they kind of get back on that wagon and continue build those good habits?
For sure. I would say that pick one thing at a time. I think a lot of people, like, all right, it's January 1st. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to work out. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And if you've been doing none of that, it's really hard to stay consistent, especially if those maybe aren't necessarily realistic expectations right from the get go. Not that you can't work towards that. So within the fitness space, I would say if you're not active whatsoever, like nothing, you're doing zero, maybe you're walking a little bit at work. Give yourself a goal of like 1 or 1.5 miles every single day and see if you can consistently do that for, 21 days. There is that rule of, it takes about 21 days, 3 weeks to build a habit. And especially to the mindset piece, like the consistency each day of moving, not only whether you're inside or outside, the movement's going to be good for the physical health, but also the mental health. And building that consistency and accountability will also help lead to the next step. And the next step might be, hey, I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week, or I'm going to go on the treadmill for maybe 2 miles now. So I would say set small, realistic goals and think of it one piece at a time. And that one piece at a time might be 1 month at a time, might be 3 weeks at a time, but setting small, consistent goals is more important than setting these large, lofty goals. I tell people like, hey, like the clients I work with, we have like maybe the macro goal, like, hey, we want to, lose 20 pounds. I want to, make sure I'm into the gym 5 days a week eventually. But maybe we start with those micro goals first. Hey, maybe we're going to focus on losing maybe 5 to 7 pounds first. And we're going to focus on going to the gym 3 days a week first consistently for a month. Then we'll work on 4 days a week and then eventually five. And that same approach can be set to anything else, right? That could be spending time with the family. That could be firearms training. So, hey, like if you're not doing anything, you're like, all right, I want to do some dry fire drills. Setting maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 20 minutes if that's all you have, 3 days a week, twice a week, once a week to start off. And again, it just depends, right? Some individuals, maybe the type A personalities like myself, I went from, 0 to 4 to 5 days a week with my firearms training just because I knew I had to play catch up to eventually be at a, I would say, okay level to compete at the tactical games. But now it's like, all right, maybe I can't commit to that. So setting small, realistic, attainable goals is important. And I also will say having some sort of physical affirmation or phrase that you want that you physically can see. So if you can see, oops, on the side right there, I have a couple vision boards or kind of phrases that I like. So, and I also have one right in front of me that you can't really see, but a vision board is really important. And that could be phrases, icons, or images that you want. So if you want to go to the gym, maybe it's a picture of yourself or someone from a magazine. I typically just cut out images from magazine, cut out and put them there, and then just put them on a board so you see it. So some of the things that I have are, build your strength, blaze a new trail. Where's your playground? I want to get out more. I want to go back to Montana. I want to go hiking. I want to make sure I'm outdoors. I have a group of girlfriends that I go riding with. We ride our Harleys. So I want to do some long desert trips. I want to go moto camping more. So again, these are just kind of a few things that I have on myself. But I think if I looked at three things, right, small micro goals to have underneath your macro goals, some sort of small movement that you're doing or small action for your goal. And then that vision board is very important, like I have right here. I'm looking at it literally as I'm talking. So I think those are kind of small steps to focus on. And again, it may not seem like much, but the accountability is really important. If you are looking for, workouts or tutorials, coaching tips, I have tons on my YouTube channel, which is my name. I have tons on my social media, specifically on X, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Those handles are 321go GAUX. I also will be doing my relaunching, rebranding my website, and I'll be eventually putting a lot of PDFs of like home fitness workouts, dumbbell workouts, kettlebell workouts, but tons of content out there. There are free resources. You can always reach out to me and ask me for questions. But I think it's really important to, again, create small goals and build from there. And like we talked about earlier, just to circle back, environment's important. And that environment doesn't always have to be in person. Maybe you don't get to go to the gym, you have to work out in the comfort of your own home. Creating an online community can be very important. I do have an online group called Get Your Health Back. It's just a private group that I've utilized to help people get their health back. So if you don't have a physical environment, or maybe the environment you have near you is maybe not the best or most positive, then the next best thing would be creating or finding an online community that can be supportive and important. So I know that was a lot at once, but hopefully that's impactful in terms of the fitness. Like I said, that can also be blended to firearms. That could be blended to anything else that you have, and also like mindset and mental is like 99% of a lot of things, 90% of it. We physically can do a lot, we can handle a lot, and our mind can handle a lot, but we have to train our mind. So just like we physically train our body, training our mind can be important. And that could be weekly mindset drills like journaling, focusing on something to be grateful every single day. Um, I have a movement and mindset program that I blend, 5 days of training with one weekly mindset task. And I think one per week is great because for a lot of people that don't do anything mindset wise or journaling, they're like, I gotta journal, I gotta write my feelings. What do I say? And it's just maybe it's like, I'm thankful that I woke up today. I'm thankful that I have a house over my head or a roof over my head. I'm thankful that I have the ability to, buy breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it might be. But it's
Mhm.
setting those small little things that gives perspective. I think it's important. So again, sorry that was
So
a lot. Fire
no, no.
hose.
I mean, you were letting us know what it was. Now, I do want to just make sure for people who are watching live, and if they are listening like on the audio podcast side, they know. But can you? What's the name of your YouTube channel? And we'll go ahead and try to post it in the live stream chat for those who
Yeah.
want to go over and check her out, and check you out. And what is your name? Your name and the name of your YouTube channel is the same, right? What is it?
Yeah, so it's Margaux and then Alvarez Alvarez. So it's just my name for YouTube. And most of it is fitness tutorials, workouts. I'll do like some follow along workouts so people can follow along with me. I'll have some kind of lifestyle pieces on there. I've shared some wine stuff. I'll also do some nutrition on there. I do a little bit more fitness than nutrition, but this year I'll be putting out more nutrition and I think recipes because I think a lot of people would like that. I've had a lot of requests for, hey, what do you eat? Or hey, what are your macros or macronutrients? So I'll be sharing more of that. But a lot of, if you're looking for educational workouts, tutorials, not only on my videos, but also my shorts and even my live tab. I've done tons of live workouts as well that has tons of content on there.
Excellent. Hey, Margot, this has been really cool. I know we're kind of at that point in the conversation where we got to wrap it up. But I hope that those who are watching will go over to your YouTube channel, watch some of the cool stuff you produce, especially the Sarah Connor video. Follow you on
Thanks.
X. I know you post pretty frequently over there, and your
Yeah,
other social
probably
medias
more than any other platform for sure.
more than you should. You got to go out there and build
Yeah.
that business, Margot. What you doing?
I know, I'm slacking, man. Ugh,
Yeah,
only posting like 12 times a day. I'm just kidding.
yeah, that's crazy.
And
Um, But what I will say is, when you get that wine going again, I want you to come back and definitely share a little bit more and
that'd be
see kind
awesome.
of see where you are, see if you've competed again, that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll invite you for a little bit of a hangout stream where we just kind of sit back and just hang out,
Drink
and
some
maybe guys
wine
like Overton Windex can hop in and
for
share
sure.
what
No,
he's
definitely.
going through. Apparently, you guys are both like in the same ish area. What did he say? Something about the 45?
Yeah, I was in Helena. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I want to say Helena from Missoula is like 2.5, 3 hours. I'm trying to think. Is typically when I would drive anywhere, I'm driving from Stevie, Bitter Valley, so that's like about a good 30 minutes from Missoula. But I mean, Montana, like Montana's huge. It's a big sky country, but there's so many places to see and explore. So it's like you might be driving for a few hours, but it's totally worth it.
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
there's a place I've got to go visit. I got a buddy up there who, former Air Force guy. He's living up
nice.
there, and I'm just like,
Do you
"What's
know
up
where he's
there?"
at?
I really don't know. Like,
There's a lot
I'm
of
not
open
that kind
sky
of
up
good
there.
friend. Good friends are supposed to ask, like, "So where you at, man? What's it like?" Oh, I got to come visit you. I'm just like, "Okay, I'm busy." Yeah,
For
where do you live?
Well, if
Montana,
you
good
do get
enough.
it, yeah, if you do get a chance to go up there, I highly recommend it. I mean, it's changed a lot. COVID and the Yellowstone show blew up Bozeman, blew up Missoula, blew up a lot of places just because people are like, oh my God, I want to go to Montana and like marry a cowboy. I'm like, that's not the same cowboys. Like, yes, there are cowboys there, but like that's Hollywood cowboy than like a real cowboy. But it's amazing. I love it. It's home, and there's just something special about there. Like, it's euphoric. And I think growing up there, living on a dirt road and being able to play outside and have all these experiences. I'm grateful for that because I think that really grounded me. That really created this root base to me to nature and outdoors. Like I love the outdoors. I love nature. I love being connected. And I think also to anyone out there trying to like feel like they're disconnected or lost, like go outside, ground yourself in some sort of nature, whether that's the desert, the mountains, the jungle, it doesn't matter. But going outside and getting into some sort of nature can be very therapeutic and can balance you. No, like ooh stuff. But again, for real, like we lived outside for centuries, right? For
Hmm.
thousands of years. only recently have been living indoors. And I think being outside is really important to getting rooted in maybe finding clarity in your life. So for those out there listening, like go outside, see some
Dude,
sun, cloud, whatever.
I'd never had more peace than when I was growing up in the Virgin Islands where I grew up. And we had a
Nice.
little wall outside the house. It was like made of stone wall sitting on the wall. And I would look into just the greenery because it was like like not even like some nice like forest. It was like a brush. Just look into the
Yeah.
green brush, barefoot, making contact with the earth, just peaceful, you know. And someone did say something really interesting earlier. I think it was Overton said that for guys, we got to get out there with other guys and like test our strength. So if you can do that in a way
For
that's healthy and
sure.
productive, because gosh, you can do it in ways that are not healthy or productive.
Yeah.
Do it. You know, I think a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of jujitsu or whatever it is. I know you said you gotten into jujitsu, and I'm sure you see the guys there who are doing well, and finding themselves. Freaking Mark Zuckerberg is changing his whole life because after a little bit of jujitsu,
Wild. Yeah. So
right?
I was like, well, that's crazy. Yeah. It's cool.
Right.
I haven't done anything since it's like early 2024. So it's been
I
almost
mean,
a
I
year
know
because
you
I'm
had a little bit
back.
of an injury, so
Yeah, but it's yeah, I love it. It's completely different, but I think again, it's just like giving yourself the tools and understanding, and it's just testing yourself and challenging yourself and putting yourself in an environment where it's different. Like the way you're going to grow and get better and like push your bubble out is by trying something new. And I
mhm.
think again, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. Maybe not a lot of people are, but like if you just try one thing new and different, maybe that's eating cottage cheese. Maybe that's going for a run, climbing on like a Concept 2 bike, doesn't matter. But I think it's important to challenge and push yourself because you will have growth, but you will also learn to be more uncomfortable.
Shoot, do a 24-hour fast and tell me how comfortable you are. It's not even that
Yeah,
hard,
I've yet
but
to
it's
do
tough.
that. I've done, I think 18 is the most I've done.
I did 72 hours. Weird,
Oh, dang.
weird.
I've heard there's like almost like a transient experience because
Kinda.
I've heard you're
You know, the
supposed to
birds
maybe
get
do it with someone.
louder.
I don't,
You start
yeah.
craving foods you never thought you'd crave, and you're not hungry, but you're just like, hot sauce sounds really good right now. Oh, I could eat a jar of peanut
Give me
butter.
some pickles and ketchup.
It's just weird stuff. So
Yeah,
definitely,
awesome.
I've loved this whole conversation, and
This has
it's
been
kind of
amazing. Thank
ranged the
you.
gamut. You know, where we're talking about just really spiritual stuff from your sister and whatnot to running a freaking wine business to now we're talking about how can you kind of be healthy and live a healthy life, and you've been a great
For
example of
sure.
that. Shoot, I mean, you got more of a six pack than I do, so kudos to you. So
Thanks.
that
Well, I
said,
appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
no, this has been
This is
great, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. So if you haven't been watching or listening, please go ahead, hit subscribe, and join us for the next one. We try to have these at least once a week, but definitely twice. Next week I'm going out of town, so it may be a little bit off. But if you watch live, thank you so much. If you're watching on or listening on the podcast side, you're the real MVP. All right, guys. Peace.